Chapter 4. It's time to leave.
Miss Springs, surely you're overreacting.
No, I'm not. I've had it with this place. The rodents look down on us rabbits, and every other one of my own species doesn't even seem to like me very much, and I don't even know why.
Maybe it's because of your charming personality, miss.
What was that, Onion?
What I meant to say was, you're quite an intelligent and curious young lady. Perhaps the other residents just don't seem to share the same, how should I put this, freedom that you do.
He was right. Ever since I was young, I never liked doing things the Burrow Tech way. During my schooling days, my mother often taught me at home. The classes were just so boring, and I already knew everything I needed to know. I kept finding ways to skip school, and of course, it helped that she was one of the teachers. And since my mother was also very friendly with many of the male rabbits, including those in the cafeteria, I always managed to get the best and freshest meals they could offer. Not to mention the whole issue with taking the damn test and starting this whole chain reaction to begin with. Yes, I probably have had more freedom than any other resident in the Burrow. And in part, it was thanks to my mother. I owe it to her to keep my freedom, to make a new life for myself. A life that can't happen as long as I stay here. You're right, Onion. I have had a bit too much freedom. And you know what? I like it that way. Who needs friends that just bring you down to their level? I need change. I need excitement. And I can't find any of that here. That's why we're leaving, and nothing you say is going to change that.
How will you get past the Burrow Tech door and the observation deck?
Shit. All this time I've been thinking about leaving, when I should be thinking about how. Don't worry, Onion. I have a plan. A plan. It should be easy enough. Break into the Overseer's office, steal the door command codes, incapacitate the observation workers, and monitor the entire entry system for Burrow Tech. Yeah, piece of cake. Cake. I wonder. Hey, Onion. You wouldn't mind making me a couple carrot cakes, would you?
A change of your mind, miss. Your mother's recipe for carrot cake always had that effect. But two? You barely even eat one, miss.
Oh, they're not for me, Onion. Oh, and I want them to be fresh, so have them ready by the time I get off work.
Of course, miss. I do hope today is a bit more enjoyable than yesterday.
It will be. For the first time, I'm feeling happy to be going to work. I still hate my job, but it does come with some benefits, like access to almost every part of the Burrow. Now, if I can only get that bitch to make sure I'm fixing the right pipes in the right places. Time to put on your good face, Olivia. I need to try my best to make sure nothing gets to me. You want me to do what? I already told you, Springs. The primary septic tank needs to be cleaned, and unfortunately it's also backed up. So I need you to get in there, unblock the drainage, and scrub the tank walls. Why can't any of the others do it? Surely they have more experience than I do. I already knew the answer to this question, but I had to ask it anyway. The others are small enough so that the drain system comes online when it's unclogged, they'll be swept away with the sewage. Then why can't you do it? You have plenty of experience dealing with... I had to catch myself before I said something. I needed her help, even if she didn't know it. Something that requires an expert's touch. Heather Trope stood there for a second before I could see a small smile starting to form on her face. You're right. I am the expert here, but unfortunately my expertise is needed elsewhere. Report back to me after you are done. She may have hated me, as I did her, but right now I need to stay on the better side of her hatred. If all goes well, then soon enough I won't have to deal with it anymore. But until then, I need to keep my head up, push through this. Regrettably, keeping my head up was easier said than done. Luckily, my jumpsuit was waterproof and had special coverings for my feet, so I didn't have to worry about the knee-high sludge getting into my fur, just as long as I don't fall. Of course, I have a thing about falling. Sometimes fate seems to have a mean streak when you think about not doing something. I took a wrong step and slipped on something and went crashing down. I was covered head to toe with putridness. I have to work through this. In a couple of days, I'll be free of this prison. I got up, brushed myself off the best I could, and continued working. Jackpot. I knew if I waited long enough, luck would swing my way. About an hour after I got cleaned up from that septic tank mess, Miss Trope had me go over to the medical facility to fix a pipe in their waste disposal system. This is exactly what I needed. The medical facility has been having trouble the past few months with pipes getting blocked up, and I was able to sweet-talk my boss into letting me repair this. I think she felt bad for putting me in that septic tank, so she agreed to give me an easier job. Either that or she just didn't want to deal with a menial task. Either way, it's exactly what I needed. Both of the medical technicians were on duty, so that might make things a little harder, but when did I ever let that get in the way? About time sanitation sent someone. We've been reporting this issue for the longest time, but every time that trope character sends someone else, they slap a patch on it and call it a day. I hope you have a more permanent solution. Perfect. Apparently I'm not the only one who has a disliking for Miss Trope. And that can work in my favor. Well, I'd be more than happy to take a look at this for you. If I can build a robot from scraps I've collected over the years, I'm pretty sure I can give you a permanent fix for your problem. Olivia, is that you? I haven't seen you since you were just a baby bunny. I'm sorry about your mother. She was a good person. Dr. Lops? I've heard good things about you, but thankfully I've never been sick enough to come visit your fine establishment. Dr. Marcus Lops. One of the few rabbits to actually get a career they were good at. But then again, it's probably easier for a rabbit to heal another rabbit. It is true that I rarely ever get sick, and at least nothing that would require a medical checkup, but I also tend to avoid the infirmary. My mother did have good things to say about Dr. Lops, especially since he was one of her favorites. I honestly avoided because I really didn't want to find out who my father was. Of course, with my mother gone, I don't have anyone else other than Onion. No, Olivia. Don't get attached. Even if he turns out to be my father, I can't have anything keeping me tied here. I made a decision and I'm sticking to that, no matter what. I spent the next hour casually talking to Dr. Lops and his assistant, a Dr. Amelia Musk, a muskrat, about different matters as I fixed the pipe system. Dr. Lops mostly asked me about my mother. I think he actually missed her. Sometimes things got a little too personal, and I opted to ignore them by pretending I didn't hear or accidentally dropping a pipe and making a rather loud noise. I think he eventually got the hints and turned towards asking more vague questions. Dr. Musk, on the other hand, seemed to be more curious about me, or rather, my biology. She said the records showed that besides me being born, I'd never been back to the medical facility for any reason, and she was curious as to why and even asked to take a blood sample. I agreed, trying my best to get on their good side. After another 30 minutes, I finally got the pipes fixed. It turned out it wasn't even an issue with the piping itself, but the disposal system it was attached to. It was buried deep into the wall to prevent too much noise, and while it was supposed to grind down solids into a passable mush, 2 of the grinders were dislodged, allowing bits to pass through and eventually block the pipes. I told them this should be a while before anything backs up again, and they were both grateful. Your mother was right. You do have a way with fixing things. I should have just called you instead of dealing with your boss. If there's anything I can do, please, let me know. Bingo. Actually, there is something. I've been having, issues digesting lately. I don't know if it's my diet or simply the stress of a new job, but things aren't coming out as smoothly as they should. Do you have anything that can help? Oh, you're constipated. I have the perfect solution for you. He went into the medical cabinets and dug around for a few seconds. When he finally found what he was looking for, he brought it over. It was a small vial with bluish liquid inside. He grabbed a small dropper and handed them both to me. This here is a powerful laxative that I created a few years ago after our new chef, who between you and me should not be touching food, came into the business. Take 2 drops each night. Don't take any more unless you plan on spending a week on the toilet. Typically, I wouldn't give you this much, but I understand it can take a while for stress to wear off. So keep it until you find your regulars again, and I have plenty in stock, and I can always whip up some more. This is even better than I imagined. This whole time I contrived to smile, nodding like I cared what they said, but now I had a genuine smile across my face. The first step in my plan went flawlessly. Thank you, Doctor. This is exactly what I needed. I'll give it a few days and let you know how it works. It's my pleasure. And I'll be sure to send a message to Heather telling her that you did an outstanding job. And hopefully that'll aid in your recovery as well. As you can probably tell, she's not the nicest person in the Burrow, no matter how hard she tries. I thanked the doctor again, grabbed my tools, and went to report my job completion. I slipped the bottle into my utility belt for safekeeping. Now, hopefully I get lucky in the next part of my plan. The final part, though, will be a true test of skill. I'm in such a good mood that I can do it. I just have to keep thinking these good thoughts. It took me another 2 assignments before I got another break. I only had 3 more hours left in my shift, and I still needed to make sure I got what I needed. This time, my assignment was to do some routine maintenance on the observation deck. Due to the nature of the station, it had to be monitored the entire day. There were always 4 rodents assigned here. Never once had I seen a rabbit. From what little I knew about this place, 2 monitored during the day and 2 monitored at night. They were responsible for guarding the doors and keeping an eye out for official Burrowtech messages. To this day, no one had ever gotten a message. Since this place is always occupied, they had their own private lavatory, and a strict monthly maintenance schedule to make sure that it was always in working order. I figured with such strict guidelines when it came to the observation deck, Miss Trope would take care of this personally, but I think she enjoyed having a lackey to do her work. When I reported my last assignment, I could have sworn I woke her up from a nap. Luckily, this makes my plans go by so much easier. Unlike the medical facility, the 2 on duty today were not very chatty. They just told me to do my thing and leave them alone. It's good that I didn't have to get on their good side, but rather, I needed to get on their bad side, if only a little. While I was checking the pipe system, making sure that the septic tank was holding up, a tank that was way too small to be used by a larger mammal such as a rabbit even once, I accidentally loosened the inflow pipe too much, causing the water to spray all over. I quickly cleaned it up, finished my duties, and apologized, saying I was new and that it would never happen again. They called me all sorts of names and said they'd be putting my incompetence in their follow-up report. I feigned embarrassment, but inside I was smiling. This is all too perfect. When I got back, Miss Trope was furious. She must have gotten the report already from the overseer's desk. I apologized, saying that some bolts were loose and that when I tightened them I must have loosened them by mistake. I said I would make it up to her and them, and that I just wanted to continue my work for the day. But this is where things went downhill. Apparently after this job I was supposed to go and replace the overseer's personal sink after it produced a rather large crack. Miss Trope was going to send me, but after this recent incident she didn't trust me with something as personal as a task for the overseer. And that she would be doing it herself. Fuck. That's exactly where I need to be. Think, Olivia, think. Before I could come up with something, however, Miss Trope told me that I was done for the day and to just go home. I needed to get into the overseer's office. There has to be a way. Unless... I went back to my quarters to get cleaned up and changed. Anya was busy in the tiny kitchen located in the back with the already small residence. Technically, residents weren't supposed to have their own food preparation areas, but thanks to my mother, who just so happened to love cooking, we were able to get one that could be used for small things, like making cake. Onion apologized that they were not ready yet, and he hadn't expected me home so early. I told him no rush, that they had to be perfect. I took out the small vial I got in medical and placed it on my nightstand, as I grabbed a small square from one of the drawers. Once I was dressed and ready, I headed back out. Time for Plan B. I got to the overseer's office just as my boss was leaving. She looked at me with utter disdain, but didn't say anything as she walked by. I looked at the entrance to the office and took a deep breath and walked in. The overseer must have known that I was coming because she didn't seem surprised when she saw me. When she asked me to take a seat, I did. However, it seemed to surprise her when I chose to sit. "What brings you to my office today, Springs?" You're not trying to convince me that the cat was wrong, are you? No, ma'am. I tried to sound polite and respectful, without seeming overly so. I didn't want her to catch on to what I was doing. Well, then, after the reports that Heather gave me, I do hope it's good. Well, ma'am, I just wanted to apologize. I said it so calm and clearly, as if I actually meant it, and I think it caught her off guard. I see. Then this is about the reports. I am disappointed, but also relieved. The fact that you've done these tasks with little complaint, despite a few complications, that you're finally accepting your role in the Burrow. Yes, I am. I didn't like it, and to be honest, I still don't. But I've seen all this disrepair in many of the sewage systems, and I can't help but want to fix them. I guess it's just in my nature. That seemed to loosen her up a bit. Also, there's the matter of my outwardness after the results of the exam. I guess I was just feeling trapped. Like I had lost the ability to make my own decisions. And now I know that that's not the case. While I don't have the career that I wanted, I can at least make use of my skills without them going to waste. I promise that my actions from here on out will be for the betterment of the Burrow, and that I'll try my best to make sure I don't make any more mistakes. Maybe I should have dreamed of an acting career because the overseer seemed to buy that. She had this look of respect in her eyes as she looked at me. Thankfully, she must have been partially distracted by some abstract thought, as she didn't notice me take a small flat item and subtly adhere it to the underside of the large desk. The overseer blinked a moment and then looked away as she spoke. You know, Olivia, I see so much of your mother in you. She was quite the rebel, too. We had been close friends ever since we were young. And when I became the overseer, I wanted to make life for her, and you in turn, as comfortable as possible. I did my best to stick to Burrowtech regulations while trying to find loopholes to help the both of you. Where do you think all those spare parts came from? Your mother always went on about how smart and crafty you were. I figured you would be the next lead mechanic in the Burrow, so I tried to help you with that. When the test came back with the results, I wanted to change it so much. I really did. If not for you, but for your mother. We were so much closer than you knew. And I think the residents were getting resentful of everything that I did for the two of you. When she died, I was heartbroken. I know I had lost my closest friend and that she had left you alone in the world. You were so young. I did everything I could to help you, and I really did. But eventually the years caught up with me and I had become stricter. You were getting older and growing more rebellious with each passing year. Without any proper caretaker, I had to make a stand. I had to make sure that you didn't end up like your mother. She made mistakes. Too many to count until one of them cost her her life. And I didn't want that to happen to you too. What did she mean by that? My mother died from a sickness. I had finished what I'd come here to do, but this was raising way too many questions that I wanted to deal with. And I think the overseer could see that what she said was bothering me. You didn't know, did you? Know what? What are you talking about? I shouldn't. It's not my place. She didn't want you to know. But when you used your dead mother against me that other day, it brought back too many bad memories. I promise we'll talk about this again. But not today. I have a few meetings I need to attend before the day is over. Goodbye, Miss Springs. I tried to get more out of her. She knew something about my mother, and she wouldn't tell me. She just looked away and didn't speak, no matter what I said. I finally left in a huff and the door closed behind me. Now I needed to know. But that would require me to stay longer. I was more dead set on leaving than ever. She said she was trying to protect me, but I didn't ask for her protection. For all I know, she was the reason my mother's dead. No. I did what I had to do. When I was well out of sight of the office, I turned on my Pip-Boar. I flipped through the applications until I came across one of my own design, and it was called the Hacktron. Not the most creative of names, but it gets the job done. After launching the application, I selected the only active link, 2 square for you. Once again, not the greatest name, but doesn't matter. After I activated it, I went through the boot up process and connected wirelessly to the small device I planted on the overseer's desk. It only took about 3 minutes before it started to feed data into my Pip-Boar. The second she logged onto her terminal, the device found its way into the wireless functionality and soon began to clone everything the Overseer did, including her logon password. It worked perfectly, and now to wait. It was, luckily, late enough that not too many of the residents were traversing the halls. After about 10 minutes of waiting, I heard the Overseer's door click. I did my best Jack Savage impersonation to hide from her, and once she was safely past, I opened my Pip-Boar to the Hacktron application and launched the link again. This time, rather than accessing the copy of her data, I was able to reverse engineer it so my Pip-Boar had a direct link to her terminal. I was able to access everything. It only took a few tries before I found what I needed: the Burrow emergency evacuation protocols. Unfortunately, it was attached to a bunch of other files that I didn't need, but I didn't have time to decrypt everything, so I simply copied it all over to my Pip-Boar. I would have plenty of time to go through these after I'm safely away from this place. Now, to set up the last part of my plan. When I got back to my room, Onion just put the finishing touches on the cakes. It was after seeing these 2 large cakes that I knew I'd forgotten something. Both the security guards were rodents. These cakes were way too big. I decided to keep one intact for me, maybe to celebrate when I finally escaped, and I started to trim down the other one. Onion objected at this, but I told him I'd forgotten that the 2 were rodents, and that these were way too big. After about 20 minutes, I had them whittled down to 2 smaller versions of themselves. I took the rest of the leftovers and put them in a small bag. This was really good carrot cake. I went over to the nightstand and grabbed the vial. Only 2 drops, huh? I opened it and grabbed a small spray bottle. I dumped the entire contents into the bottle and added a bit of water to dilute it a bit, and hopefully hide the taste. If it had any, that is. And I wasn't about to taste test it. I spritzed both cakes a few times, letting it soak in. Then I took the 2 cakes and carefully put them into small containers to prevent them from getting damaged. I told Onion to grab all the supplies that we needed as I packed my bags. I was initially planning on doing this tomorrow, but things fell into place so perfectly that I couldn't wait. I was also thinking about what both the doctor and the Overseer had said about my mother. All the good things, at least. Their words were starting to make me rethink this, but I knew I would never be happy here. I had to get this done tonight, and now is as best a time to do so. I packed my bags with all the essentials: food, first aid supplies, my tools, my old jumpsuit since I had so little clothing that actually fit anymore. And once I had everything that I thought I would need, and despite Onion's continued objections, we were ready. I told him to wait a few minutes before he followed me. Everyone knows I rarely took Onion with me anywhere in the Burrow, but they did know he was able to perform duties without me being present. Once we were outside the entrance to the observation deck, he was to wait until I sent him the all clear. He agreed, but probably only because his programming forced him to listen to me. It was finally time to do this. When I got to the observation deck, the same 2 workers were still there, but it looked like their replacements had just shown up. I calmly walked up to them and gave them both a greeting. "Well, if it isn't Little Miss Blunderbunny. What, you here to make more of a mess?" I tried to grin and bear it. Usually I don't think violent thoughts, but these guys caused them for the second time today, the first being that bitch Miss Trope. Actually, I came here to apologize for my actions. Uh-huh. Well, ain't that something? Well, words don't clean up messes. He noticed me holding the 2 small containers. But actions, they tend to work a little bit better. What do you got there, Rabbit? These are 2 homemade carrot cakes that I brought. My mother's recipe. I've been told it's bliss in cake form. One of the replacements spoke up first. You Jessica Spring's daughter, ain't you? Yes, I am. My name's Olivia. Did you know my mother? Yeah. Best damn baker in the Burrow. I thought it was a shame that she was put in the classroom instead of the kitchen. Boys, if you not taste this carrot cake before, you should be ashamed of yourselves. Well, I did just bring 2. I was planning on giving it to both of these fellas here for the trouble I caused when I fixed their lavatory. But seeing as how you're keen on the cake, how about you guys just share it 4 ways? I can always make up another and bring it back tomorrow if it's not enough. After that one gave such a glowing recommendation, if they were hesitant before, they didn't show any signs as they took the cakes. Between mouthfuls, they were saying how this was the best cake they'd ever had, and one of them even asked me for the recipe, but I told him it was a household secret. After the 4 of them finished devouring it, the replacements got to work and the other 2 turned in for the night. One of them did say that he'd have to forgive me if I brought him a few more cakes tomorrow. I told him first thing in the morning. It's getting easier and easier to lie to these fuckers. I kinda felt bad for the one who said nothing but good things about my mother. But then I reminded myself that most of these residents here are two-faced. And I'm sure he wouldn't have said anything if I hadn't had food in my paws. I stepped outside once they were all on their way, and waited. There are 2 things you can count on in this world. Everyone has to shit, and that shit has to go somewhere. And that's exactly what happened. While waiting outside, I heard the yelling. I opened the door ever so slightly and saw one of the workers pounding on the door, screaming to hurry up. Looks like the medicine finally kicked in. A few seconds later, there was a loud noise as one of the overflow pipes accidentally popped loose. Screams ensued. I stepped into the shadows as the door flew open. The first worker ran out covered in his own waste, and it smelled so bad I almost gagged. Thankfully, my short time in sanitation had helped me suppress my gag reflex, but it did nothing to make the smell better. A few moments later, the other worker ran through the door shouting, "I'm gonna blow!" And the observation deck was empty. I signaled Onion through my pip-bore and entered. Just like earlier, the room was rather small with monitors and communication panels all over. I took a look at the panels until I found what I needed. A lock button simply marked Door. Next to it was a connection point that, thankfully, was universal to all pip-bores. I unhooked mine and plugged it in. After it registered my pip-bore, it asked for the Overseer bypass code. I used my device to enter it in, and it processed. It took longer than it should have. I was beginning to think that either I screwed something up or maybe the Overseer was smarter than she looked and caught on to me. And just as I started to panic, the panel beeped and the latch popped open. This button, this small red button, was all that stood between me and freedom. I told Onion to get ready as I pushed it. The doorway leading to the Burrow entrance swung open. But something that I didn't expect happened. Alarms were sounding. These were louder than anything I'd ever heard. Lights began to flash as I heard a small rumble coming from beyond the door. Shit. The whole Burrow must be awake by now. We need to make this quick, Onion. Let's go. Now! Onion tried to object again, but I ignored him as I rushed out of the room and through the doorway. In front of me was the biggest piece of machinery I had ever seen. A giant needle-like arm started to descend from the ceiling, heavy pneumatic systems controlling its slow descent. After a moment, it started to extend into the giant cog-shaped structure, and after it was fully attached, the pneumatic system began to pull it out like it was made of paper, before rotating it onto a platform that disappeared into the Burrow walls. In front of me, what I thought was an observation floor began to extend forward and connect to platforms. It created a small bridge that spanned the pipes and mechanical structures below. I started to walk slowly, taking in everything. I was leaving the Burrow. No one had ever done this, yet alone attempt this. I'm finally gonna be free. Then the shouting caused me to freeze. I could hear mammals coming, and fast. I told Onion to go ahead of me, that he should scan outside to make sure it was safe, but really, I just wanted to see their faces as I left. I knew security would have been alerted when these alarms went off, and I really hoped the Overseer would come too. At first, 2 rodents in armored security jumpsuits came through with small guns. I didn't even know the Burrow had weapons, and they trained them on me. I was expecting the worst. Why didn't I leave when I just had the chance? I closed my eyes, expecting the worst until I heard a familiar voice over the loudspeaker. It was the Overseer.
Olivia Spriggs! What have you done? Have you gone insane?
I kept silent. I had nothing to say, and with all this noise, I don't even think she could hear me if she wanted to.
It's not too late. You're still here. I know you don't want to go. You're safe here with us. Out there. You don't know what's out there. Please, come back. I don't know how you managed to open that door, but if you come back, I will forgive you. Security, lower your weapons. She's not a threat.
I still stood there. This had been my home for the past 20 years. But my best experiences were with my mother, and she was gone. What could the Overseer possibly give me to make me stay? I had to go. I needed to go. I turned around and started walking towards the Burrow entrance.
Olivia! Stop!
I heard a small tink next to my feet. Looking down, I saw a dart lying on the walkway. So they don't have weapons. Just tranquilizers. I continued walking forward. Another tink. Either they were horrible shots or it was just a warning. I was so close that it didn't matter. The next dart didn't make a noise as it drove itself through the jumpsuit and into my flesh. I started to feel dizzy. I used all my willpower to work through it. I felt another dart impact, only this one didn't pierce the suit, but rather bounced off. And then I felt a third one score a direct hit on my neck. The effects were getting stronger, but I still had to make it.
Security, I order you to stop. Too much and you might kill her.
Oh, she cared. Fuck her. Fuck this place. I'm leaving and nothing will stop me. I heard the sound of footsteps coming close. Looks like they did stop shooting and were running after me. I lifted my Pip-Boar up and pressed the activation command. The cog-shaped door started to retreat back into its original position. I was closing it behind me. I didn't look back as I continued past the door. The funny thing is that they should have caught me. Between the chemicals and the darts slowing me down and the time it takes for the door to close, they should have been able to stop me. It wasn't until I heard the loud clang that I stopped and turned around. In front of me, on the now sealed door, were 2 numbers. 7, 6. I was free. I was finally free. Onion came back to me and started to say something, but whatever it was in those darts finally broke through my will. I told Onion that I was going to take a nap, and the last thing I remember was hitting the ground before the whole world went black.